Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming challenge. The challenge is called the Titan's Graveyard, and let me clarify exactly what that means. The Titan's Graveyard, if you ever heard about Grecian Titans or Olympic Titans, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about big gunslingers and warriors. I'm not talking about random stuff. I'm not talking about a sorcerer walking through like a valley or something like that. In my versions, let me just show you mine. So I did an example. They don't follow the references completely because I haven't finished them. But I use this character here simply just as a scale for the landscape around him. So over here, he's a scale, scale, and scale. Just the same old unit that I use, but the thumbnails are pretty much supposed to do this. It's a broken, rocky terrain with the remnants of great titans in it. So this great titan here, his face is here, half the body of this titan. A great clash a long time ago led to the ruins, another great titan's face. So try to embed it in the landscape. Also, I would like to see this depth, depth principles used. So the darker in the foreground, lighter in the background. You're basically bringing the description I wrote in the debrief to life. So some people have deviated from this. Some people have tried to, really stretch the definition and kind of change what the setup is all about. But this is what your thumbnails should look like. First and foremost, there's 3 thumbnails expected of you. These 3 thumbnails require you to attempt and experiment a little bit with the units you would like to see in your image. After you're done using these thumbnails or making these thumbnails, you have to find a way, even at the thumbnail stage, to incorporate the references. So there's all kinds of references available here. The core references are what you're copying. So the reason why I gave you so many of these is because terraforming is very difficult. So it's very easy on the student if I provide them with the patterns I expect of them. So this is how you pretty much detail details for the sides of rocks, kinds of foliage I want to see. This kind of rock distribution, they're getting smaller and more linear the further they get along the horizon, and bigger and more round the closer they get to the horizon. So these are deliberate references that I've chosen out to help you formulate this environment, and you're supposed to be pulling from these pieces for inspiration: the rock distribution, the general geological mess. All right, that's what I'm going for here. So imagine that this great landscape here, just kind of just jump into the world with me real quick. Imagine like a big hand just sitting here, and small humans walking through this valley trying to get to the other side of the world or wherever they're going, and all you see are the remnants of great broken pieces of great people, great things that look like humans, great beasts that fought them at one point in history. That's what the reference was trying to explain, the blurb was trying to explain to you guys. So you're in charge of creating this messed up, kind of destroyed landscape. It's a destroyed landscape. The challenge is about painting a destroyed landscape, and you see pieces and the remnants of the clash that destroyed them, which is the titans themselves that all clashed at one point here, and they all died at each other's hands. So you're seeing, the remnants of their body parts everywhere, of the struggle, a great struggle ripped across the land. That's what I wrote. So these references should pretty much, inspire you and kind of give you a hint as to where to start, what we're starting here. I added a little river if you guys want to go for it. If you guys want to incorporate that, you don't have to use every single one of these core references. There's also a mountain in this reference. You can omit this river completely. It might be a tiny little stream. Animals and different kinds of demonic creatures might live in the valley. So I painted it very ominously, as if like an eerie fog is emerging from the base, and that's where a bunch of evil jinns live or something like that. I mean, these are the body parts of great stone people from a long time ago, great titans. So I'm sure something is sitting there harvesting their remnants. I added some sky effects, very bleak looking, sad looking skies. I did this on purpose. The boulders are very deliberate. This could be like the head of one titan eroded through, in the wind, through history. These are very deliberate choices. So this is one of the things I chose to work from. So this cylindrical, not cylindrical, this like bridge rock system right here with the little pieces beside it. So this is something that I wanted to work from, that I pulled from. I'm going to be pulling more of these rock pieces as I continue my thumbnails. Not so much the beach, just this massive rock formation and how it sticks to the ground, the tiny little pebbles. All of that is what I want you to work with. You don't necessarily have to have a rainforest, tropical landscape to have these kinds of roots. These kinds of roots can be anything. It's just a really nice pattern to combine with rocks. Rocks are very circular and these roots are very rectangular, so it's going to be a nice complement for the composition. You don't have to treat them as exact trees. They can just be like body parts or, I don't know, something. Snakes, I don't know, something. But that's the Titans landscape. So let's talk about who did it right. You're asking us to critique you. You posted this on the community. You're asking us to critique you. There is no real, there's nothing happening here. So there's a character sitting on a rock, and it's really hard to just like discern exactly what you're painting here. If you can tell from mine, I have separated foreground, middle ground, back, middle ground, complete background from each other on purpose. We want to be able to separate these stages in distance and connect them together with all kinds of rock formations and stuff. So I want to see you trying that. The thumbnail isn't a full illustration. It's a really concrete shadow puppet type of setup. It's just a quick test. These are quick tests here that you try, that you mess around with to experiment without having the pressure of detail expected of you. It's a way to fill a canvas and pitch it to your art director and have them make some choices and adjustments that are not that painful to fix. There's no major detail. These are actual cardboard cutouts. And that's what your thumbnail should look like. The final illustration is when you raise values or darken them a little bit so that you can include some details. So rocks sit around here. There'll probably be some more real detailed description here for all of these rock pieces, if whichever one I decide to go with. So please remember that this is what the challenge is about. Let's take a look at another one. You've turned the forest setup. This is not, none of the references had a tree, so this is wrong. None of the references had a tree in them. There were no trees, and in the description there was no tree graveyard. So you can't just simply add your own definition. The only the only one that could actually be used for the challenge is this. If you've painted something already, if you've already started a painting and you're trying to make it so that it matches the current environment challenge, I'll know. And this is not what the references. There were no trees in the references. The inspirational images, however, are there on purpose. The inspirational images are there to inspire you on color combination, cube versus those long images. So you see how this is very geometric combined and against this organic pattern here, this web pattern. This is beautiful. I would want to use that. Some more rock destruction, general ruin. This is one example of scale. So look at the tiny people here and look at this massive object. And this was a painting of a Titan brought to life. So this is an example of scale that might inspire you. These are not references for you to duplicate or imitate in your own way. You're not supposed to do that. This is another example of the kind of setup. It might be a pure desert, it might be a jungle. It doesn't matter which one you choose, you just have to stick to it. If you can look here, it kind of looks like a mouth of a dragon, a great mouth of a dragon. This is exactly what I want to see. Kind of like tricky little silhouettes of great rocks that are camouflaging as rocks, but if you look a little closer, you'll see the shape of a human. Or if it sneaks up on you, the shape of a human, or dead creatures, or there's a hand in every one of these. So there's this hand, and then I kind of hid this hand actually. Alright, so this is wrong. Where the description did not say a traveler finally meeting a great temple and resting place, the great door between realms. This is not what I asked for. The closest one would be this one. This is a cool example. And you can just be looking from the cave out towards the valley, and I would love to see some Titan remnants here, some rocks, some really messed up, disturbed kind of terraforming that at one point or another is like the artifacts or the remnants of a great clash, or fossils of a great clash. This is absolutely wrong because this is not what I asked for. I did not ask for a creature. I mean a human being, a character design. I put the character there on purpose as a scale, so that this is not about the character. I should not be bothered with the detail of their shoulder pad. This is not about them. She's taking up too much space in the canvas. If she is a Titan, an ancient Titan, this is not how me as the commissioner charged you with making the painting. This entire area is too silhouetted. If you throw too much of the foreground in shadow, you will have a very, very hard time filling it with detail. You have to show us more of the midground, less of the background, and less of the foreground. The midground should take up the most space in an environment. So this also is wrong. So please rethink your setups. Please make sure that you're not posting just anything as an environment and thinking that it's included in the environment. There's a reason why I take time, a lot of time, to write up and make you the resource pack for the challenge. There's a reason why I cast polls so you guys can choose the topic. Don't just paint an environment and say you're participating. There is a resource pack and you download it right here. This is where you download the resource pack. You have to download it and follow exactly what's being told for you to paint. The closest that I've seen is this one right here, but I'm seeing just general shapes. I would love to see some more actual rock formation. So if you've read the description says there is, great pieces, arms, half a shoulder, half a head, hands left behind, great rocky pieces left behind of a great clash in history. This right here, I'm not sure what's happening here, to be honest. I don't know what this is, what this white stuff is. I feel like something is holding, like, I'm not sure what these white pieces are. It seems like these two people are fighting. There's two characters fighting, but I'm really not sure what this extra little bit is. These are the two sister stars, so I have made it really friendly, fantasy friendly. I have given you two planets that you have to show in the sky, which is really great. Thank you for remembering this detail. But just remember that there's all kinds of options, all kinds of ways you could set this up. You just have to remember, it's a landscape, it's a horizontal landscape. There's a reason why I gave you a template, and the template is 1920 by 1080 or larger. This is 1920 by, this is 16:9 ratio right here. So yeah, just remember that this is really, really necessary for you guys to follow the resource pack. What else? So remember, it's a horizontal landscape. It's cinematic. It's for cinema. Unless it's for cinema, so it has to be horizontal. And yeah, I just want to make sure that you guys are sticking to it. It's not a Christian graveyard. It's not an actual graveyard with tombstones. The word graveyard is used loosely here. It's referring to the remnants of the body parts of the titans that once clashed on this great desert landscape or jungle landscape, or whatever you choose for it to be. It's not. I'm not asking you to paint me a vampire Dracula graveyard. I'm asking you to paint me a very Grecian-inspired great titans of Olympus or some derivative of that story kind of landscape. All right? Is everybody clear with that? Does everyone understand? Yes, the point of the challenge is to help you guys get practice in working with restrictions. The challenges are supposed to help you work with restrictions. So this is you learning how to work with customers, all right? So the customer isn't going to like it if you give them a Christian graveyard when they were describing in their novel, a great landscape, some kind of earthy, terraformy kind of landscape. They're not asking for that. They weren't describing tombstones. So I wasn't describing tombstones. Please be aware that this is not what I was asking for. And if you have questions, you can always ask in the community. But remember, do not attempt the final version without getting a critique, at least one critique on your thumbnails. You cannot move on to your final illustration for the environment challenge unless you've gotten at least one critique. At least one person has looked at your thumbnails. All right? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So do I just need to add less detail in the thumbnail, but I can keep the landscape I had? I don't know which one was yours, Adaze. But just remember that follow the description, separate foreground, background, and midground, and make sure that you have all the units specifically described in the description and referred to in the core references. Alright, so let's begin. Let's open Portrait Studio real quick. Let's have some fun. Alright, so thanks everyone for coming. Thank you for hearing my little rant about the challenge. I do want you guys to benefit from these challenges and have experience. Actually, this experience starts with these challenges. So the more of them you do, the more experience you build. And experience is endurance. Endurance is experience. You learn by enduring these kinds of experience and you become better and more experienced. So let's talk about this piece right here. So the person is looking backward, and it feels like there's no way in hell that anyone can turn their head like that without snapping their neck. Because if I turn my head like that, the furthest I go is the side of my face. That's the most comfortable that I can turn it in. So let's take a look at what Portrait Studio has offered to us. So I'm going to go ahead and turn her back, but I am going to turn her head. Alright, so head tilt. I'm still not completely aware of these. Okay. And then tilt the other way, please. Alright, this is pretty much all I can do. As soon as I try anything else, if I want to see more of my head, if more of my head is supposed to be visible, so let me find it would have to be that the photographer has to make me tilt this way in order to see more of my face. So the character right here, the one you're drawing, if we were seeing this exact angle, so this much of this side of her face is visible, let's turn that this way, I would be seeing the side of her face. It would be very uncomfortable and a very awkward position if we were looking at the face, if we were seeing this much of the face with this much of the back. It doesn't feel natural. We would see more of the front part of her shoulders. Okay. Oops. Alright, even if we straighten the head forward, it doesn't feel very natural. So everyone try it. Try this pose yourself and see how far you can go. And if you're like some sort of flexible person with triple joints, you don't count. Alright, all the normal people who don't have an owl head, who are not an owl, please try this so that you can see whether or not this is possible. There's no way in hell I'll ever be able to tilt my head that much at all. There's no way I can do that. This update actually has been around for a while for those who are wondering when did we start tilting heads. This update's been around for a while. Head tilts and all that business. So now that we've said that, all we have to do is remember that we need to correct and show off some less of the shoulder. So less of the shoulder needs to be visible. This means that we're looking at the front part of the cube of the shoulder. So the cube of the shoulder has a front part to it, right? And this is the cube of the arm. So the arm is like a rectangle. We're seeing the front part, whereas before you were showing us the exact side of it. Before you were showing us this instead of this, which is not what we want to see. We want to see this in order for the head to match with it. When we try posing faces, so you're great at faces, you're learning how to paint faces, you're messing around with color, this is great. But remember that if you want to put the head on some kind of pose in the body, you need references, or else you'll make mistakes that are uncanny, just like we saw before. Alright, so these are my corrections. As for the face itself, I feel like it's a little too pink. I'm just going to push this over to the yellows, and we're going to get a really believable skin tone color. So hopefully you guys can see the quality, since I turned the quality to 1080p, but I'm not sure if it makes a difference, if you can tell the color difference here. But before, after, very pink and very human, very, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like a doll. And then after you start bringing in the peachy colors, then it feels a little bit more natural. Just because she was pale, so Chinese girl you called her, so Chinese complexion, It tends to be very pale, but it also tends to not be so cool. So the more north you go, like Russian faces or Ukrainian faces have that beautiful purple running across the lower eyelid and the mouth and the cheeks. It's very translucent skin, very pale. It's north in the winter. I guess the sun's less strong in the winter or something, but up there it's just everybody's so pale. Really, really translucent skin, very, very light, very untanned. And the lower you get on the latitudes, the more dark everyone gets. That's pretty much the rule. Until you get to the Antarctic, then everyone goes back to being light, I guess. But yes, this is what I want to change. So both the shoulders. The shoulder is very awkward. The face simply will not do that. It's part of a total rotation, and after it turned from this, if the head keeps turning from, so even here it feels a little unnatural, but if the head keeps turning after this point, if you start seeing too much of the head, at this point, that's when you know this person is possessed and there is something that you need to exorcise out of this person's body. At that point, there's demonology, there's a demon involved in making this head turn this much. Alright, so if you wanted us to see this much of the head, this is how much of the shoulder we'll be seeing. So before, after. These are the changes I could just make just for this right now if you want to save this specific image. I recommend you do a full study and work with references. If you want your images sent back to you, just talk to me on Facebook. I'll send them all back to you. Alright, let's talk about the forehead real quick. So, reset sliders. Whoa. She's like, I see you. And let's zoom in. The speed on mine is unbelievable. Alright. And let's talk a little bit about the forehead. So, when we have this bulgy forehead, it does happen. It does happen. But what we need to see typically is this straight line. So, let me do the changes real quick so I can show you. Like this, and then we tuck this back out. If the forehead is too strong, what happens is it doesn't feel very feminine anymore. The feminine does have a rounder head and a more bulgy head, absolutely, than a male head, which is very, very square, and you've got the large brow bone for male faces. But the feminine face, yes, it doesn't have that, but it's not this bulbous kind of enlargement, this deformity. And there's an actual medical deformity where your frontal lobe, this entire area sags forward. There's an actual deformity that it does that specifically in the body, that kind of genetic deformation. So we don't have that kind of bulginess for a generally healthy face. We also need to tuck this eye in just a little bit more. And the reason why that is when I covered this last class, when students draw half of a face, they think all they need to do is draw half of the eye. This is absolutely wrong. There's a perspective that's happening, and so we need to see more of the bulge of the eye. So before you had half the face and this enlarged kind of forehead, and after we've kind of just straightened it back together again. So when we see the face from the side, if you can take a look, let me just diffuse some of that shadow. Okay, so just more ambience. This space here, this little piece, in the newer version I'm going to have a little pen that I can instruct with. So I'm going to be able to actually draw a red mark on the screen, but until then, until those updates are ready, I'm just going to follow my mouse. So right here, this little piece, this inside of the eye, on the side of the nose, just under the brow, this is what we start seeing more of. And we start seeing not half the eye, but the full side view of the eyeball. Right, so we start seeing the bulge of the eyeball. So this symbol, this teardrop shape of the eye, turns into half of a circle, and we start seeing that C shape. So that's what we need to see, and that C shape isn't as long as half the eye here. It's really short. If you measure it, it's a very short length to it. Okay, so let me just do that a little better. Excuse me. Alright, and then just take a look at what happens to the eye. It gets tucked in, and we start seeing lots of the side of the face. So we can't have the eye, if we can't allow the eye to sit on the temple edges. So let's say we're drawing a face, and this is the jaw. This is the symmetry line that cuts across half the face, and then this and this are the four quarters on the face. So we have quarter number 1, 2, 3, 4. When we see a face from the side and 3/4 view, we're only seeing 3 of them. So that's why we only have 3 and we call it 3/4 view. So when we have an eye and we're painting the eye inside these two front faces, so these two front faces are the ones looking at us all the time. When we paint an eye and the eye is limited to the side of the temple, this doesn't change when we rotate the eye, when we rotate the head. The temple is still the side of the cube. This greater shape right here is a cube. So never let the eye, if it's not going over the temple line, front view, it will not go over the temple line, side view either. This is called rotation. And your ability to rotate an object, a smaller object on a greater object, is a real test of your skill. The fact that you can do it is a sign of an advanced skill. So rotating this sphere, this cube on this sphere from the side, it looks like this. So you know on the side that looks like this because in your brain you're rotating it. So you have to train it. You have to find some kind of reference system, form studies, anything that'll help you train this essential tool that you need in order to paint better. You paint better when you can rotate in your head. That's it. That's the formula. So can you turn this eye that is limited to the inner quarters of the face, can you turn it and still keep it respecting the temples and not inside the temple area? So side view, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? This is a very big thing. I've seen it twice already. I'm not sure if, I'm under the assumption that you guys watch my videos, so the corrections that you see me do on another image, you kind of apply to your own. Maybe some of you are new, you haven't caught my latest videos. It's really not required of you to watch every single one religiously. But because I've covered it recently, I felt like, I need to cover it again. That's a bad sign. Let's talk about this one real quick. This person asked me that they really want to do everything more realistically. They feel like doing everything more realistically. And I see like they've really courageously omitted the line. So round of applause for you. Thank you for omitting the line. Thank you for just moving away from it. But at this point, really what the problem is I don't think you know how to place a character in an environment yet. Whenever you place a character in an environment, you need a horizon line. You need to just identify where the horizon line, even if it's in a room, even if it's on a stairwell or something. There's always some kind of horizon line that tells you where the floor is. So once you decide where the ground is or the floor, then you'll be able to dress it up. So just this ground just being so slanted doesn't feel, it feels like very wonky. It doesn't feel like the character standing straight up, but the ground is tilted this way, and you can have that. I guess that situation can happen, but it's just such a particular situation. It feels more like an accident than something deliberate. You've hidden part of the character, like half of the character, so it's both a character design. I think what we need to see is like a general, you've added this big yellow piece here, so my eyes are going here and waiting for the rest of her body. So I think you should just darken the lower parts here. You should continue the eyesight, so lead the eyes towards a point of interest, but there's nothing really to meet the eyes on the other half of the canvas. It feels like it's just there. I feel like at the end of the day, the best thing for you to do is just that and fill the hand back inside. It's a character design instead of a full environment. If you want to take on a more realistic environment, learn about perspective, learn about installing a unit, a smaller unit, a reference system to establish scale, learn about the core shadows, learn about terraforming and foliage patterns. That referencing is what I'm talking about in form studies. That's the best way for you to get a better hold over all of the units you've attempted here and somewhat failed at. So you've kind of, not really, I don't like using that word, but you haven't really grasped exactly what is needed of you for the environment around her. You have some great shadows here, really, really great shadows. They just need a little bit more work. I think you should work in grayscale for a while and perfect the values and how you paint skin. I think you should work on beauty standards, making faces a little bit more feminine or masculine where they're needed. This whole really strong Neanderthal brow kind of makes the face look very masculine. And if you want it to look feminine, you kind of want to give it that smoother transition. The nose is very large. So get rid of the color, get rid of the environments, grayscale everything. This hairline is very, very artificial looking. And just start working with references and start working around painting realistic units in the anatomy. It's just really just a lot of work ahead of you. It doesn't mean that it's going to take you years. It just means you need to make your studying habits a little bit more organized. Start thinking of it in this order. Try to learn how to paint faces first. Faces are really the thing that gets you jobs. Character design, all kinds of stuff requires you to draw a face, unless you're really going in just for environments or mech design or something like that. But whatever it is you want to work for in the future. But I usually start with portraiture with my students. I kind of just encourage them in teaching portraiture. They're led into a better understanding of form. So for now, focus on your characters. Focus on dressing your characters with some, focus on the design. Focus on the figures, the anatomy, and the portraiture in grayscale, and then do some form studies as well on the side. And that'll help you just generally get a better image in your mind for how everything matches together when you combine it all. And then this piece right here. It's a very short class today because all of this stuff that's been posted on the environment, on the community is 14-day challengers. So lots and lots of 14-day challengers. I wanted to talk about this. It looks more like a bowl of like buttercream without the shine than it does a candle for one very, very important reason. What do we say about light sources? Light sources always hit no man's land. And when they do, wax is a translucent object. It's see-through. And so what happens is we get subsurface scattering just around the edges, which you already had a little bit of. But the spikes here, the necessary contrast was missing. And we just need to see some of that contrast come through. So no man's land. Just like here in the coal, it's hot. It's a source of light. It's reflecting its color everywhere, which means it needs to be a little bit hotter. So all these hot spots are very necessary. So the necessary contrast is definitely missing in these material studies. Also, if this object is this reflective and this translucent, it's going to have a higher peak in the specular. So specular is going to reflect the nature of the light source shining on it. So it's going to get the color of the light source and the value of the light source. As well as this desaturation that you've added here. This definitely needs to be corrected because the color of the object is purple. The object is translucent. The entire shadow of the object is going to be purple. However desaturated along the gray floor, it will still be purple all around. Less bright than the inside, definitely, but it still needs to be purple. So beautiful job on the subsurface scattering, but because of the light source, it would need to be just a little bit brighter. Just like that, and a little bit brighter of a shadow. Exactly where that subsurface scattering happens. So tiny changes, but they reflect a kind of a lack in the real understanding of the texture you're going for. No man's land, you can use crazy white shades for no man's land. This value is right here now. But before, the flame, being a flame, was this dark. No, it's not allowed for it to be, oopsie. It's not allowed for it to be that dark, or this shade here, or this shade here. These are very, very dark shades for a value. Just take a look over here. They're on the edges, and they need to be up here. So it's very dark for a flame. We need to spike that all the way up and use pure whites and just throw that subsurface scattering everywhere. I would probably throw it all the way down here as well, but I would need a lot of editing. Maybe along the edge as well of the candle. So the entire candle becomes hot, and that heat just allows that light to the heat is the light coming through the object. But this spike here is very needed. That's really all I wanted to cover for this one. There isn't much to look at this week, unfortunately. Maybe there'll be more by Thursday. The more variety I see in the community, the more variety the class will have. But let's take this time that we have left to answer some questions. What's everyone curious about? What would you guys like me to cover? Is there any kind of like a Q&A session? So bring on the questions. Let me see if there were any questions I missed. Okay. Oh yes, they don't like being tan because that means you have to work outside or poor. Yeah, that was the way back then, yeah. Okay. The headless horseman laughs at all you noobs. What? Um, this image makes my neck hurt. Okay. um, okay, so let's see what everyone is saying. On a scale of 1 to 10, how awesome is my Yasuo? Honestly, Mark, I don't know, you know? I didn't see no quadras from you or triples. I mean, it ain't no Lucian. I did some extreme perspectives on the body. I'd like to see more classes on the subject. Um, there's a reason why I stay away from critiquing uh, sketches. It's because they're just sketches, and there's not much I can really do with a sketch, paint over wise. And usually everything is already written up before I get there, so you guys have that. If you guys attempt at painting, that's very different because at that point the perspective changes the way we paint the form. So what's coming up in Portrait Studio is fully rendered full body images. So you guys will be able to have a full body to reference for your work. It will no longer be just a bust. So when that comes in, I can actually go in and have a reference system for you guys and tilt the camera so that we can see how objects stack in extreme perspectives on a human body. But other than that, it's very difficult for me to critique a sketch because at the end of the day, it's only a sketch and it's not really using any light on it. And I can't really mess with edges at that point. It's always about edges and blending and gradients and the pearl and the cave. And there's not much I can do. As long as you're stacking and as long as you're shrinking distant objects and enlarging close-up objects, that's really how you're supposed to continue these studies. Try to render them and then post them again and maybe we can talk about it. Marissa asked, I read the debrief for the theme challenge, but I'm still extremely confused. Are we limited to the references you provided? Can we go a bit more fantasy-based Titan environments? Yes, you can. It doesn't have to be Grecian or Olympic. You can go for a, what's that fucking game called? Shadow of the Colossus. They can be like Colossi. Okay, they can be just Colossus. They can be like a Colossus times two, four across a landscape. Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. I don't know what the plural is for Colossus. Um, but so I think it's just Colossus. But yeah, you can just make it your own kind of character. I chose to go a little bit Olympic, so it's like the final gods descended and they all fought, and you see parts of Helios' head and parts of Zeus's trident, and I might go for that. You can scatter some weapons across, just make sure they're not too large. And not disrupting the environment, or it's all about the rocks at this point. This is what the writer came to you with. It's rocky. I want to see lots of rocky dead giants, and that's it. That's really what it is. Do you find it easier to paint in grayscale and then go to color, or just paint with color from the start? Absolutely paint with grayscale. No questions asked. Start grayscale all the way until you're absolutely ready and fully sure that you're ready to go into color. Even grayscale, your references, skin references, hair references, character references, environment references, grayscale everything. Mine was the only landscape you did not critique. Is that good or bad? I don't remember which ones belong to you guys. You guys don't name them after yourselves. There is a male bust, yes. There's a male, as well as a female. In the new update, will it be a different predetermined poses order or a full bendable body on the update? Fully bendable body. Do you have a lesson on cinematic camera angles? Though I should probably ask my film teacher about that. No, I don't. I might have mentioned it over a couple or many, I guess. I've talked about those. Whenever there's an environment piece, I talk about different angles, but there's all kinds of angles. High angle, wide angle, Dutch angle. There's so many different kinds. You can find a list online if you just search it up. The Titans don't have to be humanoid, do they? Like basic big humans? Yes. So I did mention in the. Have you guys read the debrief or not? In the debrief, do you guys want me to read it to you? I'll read it to you. A great struggle cuts through the horizon, buried under sand and overgrowth. Great boulders form mountainous cliffs, sharp, piercing the clouds, hiding the great edge of the world from view. To the traveler, these great shapes look to be as any other formation of the planet's face. But these rocky peaks are the scattered smaller pieces of something bigger, something older. They were the great rocky fingers, a shoulder, or a half head of a god. These were the remnants of a great battle fought between titans, a great battle that hailed no victor, great men and beasts that had clashed at one brief moment in the past. They now scatter here, the cliffs populating the view, ever-reaching and silent. The sky above darkens, lit by two sister stars setting together beneath the rocky edge of the horizon. That's the description your employer, whoever it was, gave you from a book or some other thing that you were supposed to create the concepts for a movie or a game. But that's it. And you are supposed to work from that. So if I'm saying head, shoulders, and fingers, I mean a humanoid-ish god titan. I also mentioned the word beasts. So beast is also an option as well to include in there. Not an option, it's mandatory. This is the reference you're working from. I give you the core references so that you can know exactly how to attach these parts of body parts along the rocky horizon. Alright? Hiba, try to draw actual people, siblings, parents, friends, classmates. Do you have any advice for stopping drawing anime-ish to realistic? Because I'm stuck. The biggest thing about anime is the proportions and the measurements. So, yeah, you can draw actual people, but remember you're measuring actual people too. Don't just draw them, measure them, find the difference. Anime has larger eyes, smaller nose, a small mouth. If you constantly do that, then you will get a more anime look in your images, even if you paint the eye realistically. Shrink the eye, make the eye have a lower eyelid, make it blinkable, have the nose actually have nostrils. All of that works together to make the face a lot less anime and a lot more realistic. I should write copy. Well, I don't really have to write copy because I'm saying I work from this description. So this is the description they gave you. So I gave you. So you have to work from that. How big should pupils be for a standard facial expression? It's different for different people. Technically bigger for females, but still average. Smaller for males, but still average. So don't make it like a dot, and don't make it fill the entire eye. So if you're drawing eyes that look like anime contacts, if you're drawing this kind of eye, it's fine. But remember, this is not natural. This isn't realistic. But it's also excusable. This can work in a reference. Asian eye. I'm not sure how many of these women are wearing contacts. I think she's wearing contacts. This is like a normal size. And then Caucasian eye. Also normal size. So when you increase it just by a little bit, it starts to look like that big anime-ishness. But this is pretty much this is what I mean by average. The tops and the bottoms are kind of hidden when the eye is fully open. When we're seeing too much of the top whites, the eye is shocked. Normal eye gaze, just a little bit off the top is shaved off. The pupil isn't hidden, and a little bit of the bottom might be visible or not visible. Just depends, depending on each kind of eye and how they look. This is very, very wrong. Okay. A debrief, yeah, I guess. Alright, so I read it plus 10 times too. Okay. I used to have that too in my experience. Just keep practicing realistic. Yeah. Thank you, Marco. So, what did Felipe Arujo say? Did he say anything inappropriate? You're very welcome, Hiba. You said in a video not to use no man's land when shading a face, except the dark spots, but my art teacher said shadows need to be pure black, and now I'm confused. I'm Celtic.lol. Your art teacher does not know what she's talking about. Please trust me, because I know what I'm talking about. Not to be cocky or full of myself, but please do not use black on a face unless there is one kind of light source. Would you like a reference? Let's make one together. Here, brightness. All right, take a look. A little bit of ambience in the room. These shadows are very pretty. These shadows work. These shadows make sense, but they are not no man's land. All right, so these shadows here, if the head tilts, let's just tilt the head without moving the camera. If the head tilts in the room, these shadows don't get darker, and the dark spots remain dark spots. But in this case, it's a model. These aren't actual caves. The model doesn't have an actual nostril. So just remember that. The dark spots and all that other stuff, the model shouldn't have to reference everything for you, or else it's just a photograph. Portrait Studio is amazing for capturing the form on the human anatomy. It's not a reference system for realistic human skin rendering. It's not. It's stone. So these references, along with a relievable standard room ambience and light source, and even then, the one pin light, one light source, and the room would probably be a little bit darker. Even then, the dark spots aren't that dark. The only way the dark would be that dark is if there was zero ambience, and even then, it's not black. It's a really dark shade of gray. Alright, even then it's not black. Your teacher, if she's telling you paint full black with your Conte, she's basically trying to sabotage your art. I mean, unless I do this, but this is very unrealistic, this doesn't happen in the real world, unless you're right beside the sun and you're burning up. Alright, so this is the darkest the room can go. And on average ambience in an open room, this is how light everything is. Right. Even if the skin tone of the person is very dark, so the skin value is dark, it doesn't mean the shadows get any darker. The room is not allowing it. This light environment is determined by the room. The light environment units are the light, the brightness of the background color in response to the brightness of the light source color, in response to the shade of the object, so how light the object is, and all of that in response to the reflectivity of the object. That's what a light environment is. Those three units, the condition of the light source, the condition of the background, or the condition of the object, all work together to either keep the value up or keep the value down, but it's never full black. The only time it's full black is when we have no light source. There is no light source whatsoever. Everything is nice and dark and non-existent. And this is basically a dark room. There's still universal ambience here, but technically all the lights are off. Reset sliders, and I'm just going to close this up. When do you think the update for Portrait Studio will come out? Well, we got an estimate from our modeler for the beginning of August for the final models to be finished. We are reorganizing the UI, so it looks a lot fresher, cleaner. There's going to be a lot of new additions to the controls, so we do need a more organized way of saving your settings, saving everything. We also need to make a promotional video so that we can promote it. And this time we're going to be promoting it to photographers as well. I know photographers have to experiment a lot with different kinds of light sources, so this is a nice way for us to reach out. So it might be for the end of August. At the latest, I hope, fingers crossed, at the latest, we're going to be very busy in August. Dude, seriously, how does an instructor get a job with information like that? Not to be mean, but what the fuck, yo? How do you tell people to paint with black in an open light source room? I don't know. How do you expect students who are beginning their artistic journey to invent their own kind of contrast in an open room with lit ambience? I don't know. I don't know how you get to that level, but your teacher does not trust me, my love. I am here to help you. Don't trust your teacher. Take her with a grain of salt. Tell her, yeah, sure, just shut her up. I'm so sorry to say this, but I know what I'm talking about. Trust me, please don't paint with black. Please, please. Especially if you're using traditional work, you're not going to be able to erase that off. Great things are coming. I imagine a silly question, but can we use a different color palette from our main reference? I'm not sure what you're saying. A color palette for what? perhaps your teacher meant as dark with your pencil as you can. Even that is not good. You won't be able to erase very well. That'll just indent your paper or your canvas. It's not good at all to push really hard with your pencil. We're actually instructed in art school to raise our arms up and tilt our pencils forward on their sides and paint with a really light, low weight hand. Um, uh, okay. Anyone have any more tips on keeping a feminine face looking too masculine? Just make sure the brow bone, that Neanderthal brow, is gone. And eyebrows, I was showing this to a student earlier, male models. I searched it up for educational purposes. Male models don't have that eyebrow arch. See, straight line, straight line, straight line. Okay, these guys need to seriously put some shirts on. Really straight line. And for females, female model, we have this eyebrow arch. So this eyebrow arch also keeps the face very, very feminine. Just like this. So the space under the eyebrow also keeps it very, very rounded and pretty, and large doe eyes. That's one way to keep a face looking very feminine. Yeah, you're right, Mark. Not every teacher, has a thorough experience with. I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying there's human errors possible. I might be saying a bunch of mistakes I don't realize I'm saying. I would start with low contrast Tom Artist and then adjust it on Photoshop or introduce darker shades, but I always start low contrast. Never start high contrast with skin. Everybody write that back to me. That is the worst thing you can do for your colors later. They will look muddy and they will look really, really weird and very non-human. Skin is a very mattified, translucent, subsurface scattering, um, what's the word? So when something is susceptible. It's very subsurface scattering susceptible object. Yeah, so always start low contrast. What if we wanted to make a mix of male and female features? At that point, you have to pull from the best of both worlds. What did it start off with? Did it start male and then became female, or did it start female and then become male? Start with the original one and then introduce those units. So the arched eyebrow on the male face will make it look like both male and female. Androgynous is not something you should be going for as a designer. You should be able to draw both extremes of either gender. Yes. Yes, yes. Beautiful, my children. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you for your support. I really hope the new updates of Portrait Studio help you all in your artistic journey. I will try to keep myself available for anyone who has questions about the environment challenge. Please, if you have a post or a thumbnail, please post it here early before you start finalizing the rendering. You have to post it here. Please download your resource pack. It's available here on my website. Please download it and read it. And make sure you're following the rules. Make sure that you are reading it thoroughly and asking questions for clarification. I will answer them as best as I can. I really want this environment. 250 people voted plus. I really want this environment to change your lives, to get you guys started on your, that aspect of your portfolio. It's not always about drawing faces, and we have to get into, tighten our belts around the environment challenge. Thank you everyone for coming today. If you guys want to stay connected, just go to my website. Istebrak.com is where you'll find everything. So the community, the download link for Portrait Studio, my art, and basically it's a community that really you want to connect to. So subscribe on YouTube if you want the recording of today. If you want to catch the recording, if you missed some of it, it's going to be available on YouTube. Google Plus, the community is available here. The link is here. If you want your work sent back to you, go to Facebook. And Twitter, I announce everything on Twitter if you want to stay connected to me and get an answer from me as soon as possible. It's either Facebook or Twitter. Community, I'm not always available to answer your questions. I do try to see it whenever I can. And that's it. Thank you everyone for joining today. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.